The nation is under siege.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand on April the 14th. It's a Sunday night. We're usually on Saturday night, so if you're new to this channel, we are usually on at 9 p.m. every Saturday night, Eastern Daylight Time. Couldn't do it this week at that time, but we give it a try, and we're on tonight on Sunday tonight, which is kind of interesting for us. We rarely do a Sunday night show, but we have to keep the ship afloat, so to speak. Again, if you're unfamiliar with this program, we are Divided We Stand on YouTube. We ask that you subscribe. We're not monetized. We're not asking for anything. We just ask that you commiserate with us and subscribe. Hopefully you'll enjoy. We also have a Facebook group page. We are on Facebook, and we are called Divided We Stand on Facebook. We ask that you become a member there. As Dave suggested last week, we won't be asking you any survey questions as you join. However, we do mention that we are partisan, and we don't want any kind of cheap shots at Joe Biden and the administration. It doesn't mean you can't disagree with him, but nothing nasty. If you do, you'll be gone. And we do get rid of people. So that is important. Well, that being said, I'm going to switch to my partner, co-pilot on the show. Where is he? Is he getting dressed? Ah, there he is. That's David Price from Arlington, Virginia. Dave is a former educator,
adjust my camera,
a former journalist, and a debutante at night, I suppose, or something or other. But no, Dave's a real good guy, and he's very, very knowledgeable, well-read, and he's the guy you want to talk to if you want to talk politics. Dave, how are you doing tonight from Arlington there?
Let's see. How am I doing? Physically well. Spiritually okay. But looming all over that is what is going to be, and we've done it so many times, it sounds like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. This is the most important election in the history of... Well, this is. This is to determine whether we have an America that the Founding Fathers established, or whether we have an America that Donald Trump will establish. It's that simple. Right. There's nothing in between. It's not about, you're either for Donald Trump or you're for America as it was envisioned and has been running for hundreds of years. And that's not that. Interesting enough, Brian, I just ran across something before we came on. The election, people say, it's so far away. Do you know what I mean? It's only 205 days from tonight. And I'm not good with math, but that's it's like seven months, a little bit under 7 months. And we're already seeing it's really packed. Now, of course, there's a big story. There's only one story. There's one big story this week coming up. We'll hold that for first. Let's just look back a little bit on this week.
By the way, can I just interject for one comment?
Whatever.
Because what you mentioned was really, really important about how, you were saying that, we keep saying this, we keep drilling it over and over again, that this is the most important election. And, as you know, I speak with Russians during the weekend, and Sunday's no different. So I'm speaking with somebody who also speaks with other Americans, not many, but there are Americans who like to learn Russian and Russians who like to learn English. And this woman with whom I speak every Sunday, mentioned that she has this fellow from New Hampshire who is a Republican. He votes for Trump. He will vote for Trump, but he told her that it really doesn't matter who you vote for, whether it's Trump or it is Biden. And then I said to her, there is a perfect example of what I'm talking about in this country. That people don't realize the importance of things. They couldn't care less. That's the type of person that doesn't care about the next person. You just simply assume that no matter what happens, it's all the same. And we ran into this. We ran into this with Antonio Reed when we had Antonio on a couple years ago,
Hmm.
which we disagreed with him, still do. Nice guy, very intelligent, but the mentality of many Americans, and again, I'm just anecdotally bringing up the one today, Dave. But this is the thing, and this gets passed around as if it really isn't that important, but it really is, and there is a big difference. 50 years ago, maybe there was a difference of 5 or 10% of how the GDP is, or the budget would
Yeah.
be set up. But now it's a whole new ballgame.
Well, I look and I mean, I was only what 8 when John JFK was elected. So really, the first president that I kind of knew something about, Lyndon Johnson. Um, there was certainly a difference between Barry Goldwater and Lyndon Johnson. But however, they both cared about America. No question about that. Barry Goldwater considered himself a patriot. I think we can call him one. I disagreed with him vehemently. Um, Richard Nixon, for all his failings, and there's a long list of them, um, still he still had some connection to America. It wasn't just about him, as it is. We'll be talking about quite a bit in a few moments.
T-Bone's here with us tonight too. It'd be nice.
Hi, T-Bone. How's things with you? I hope they're good. So let's. I just want to get a couple things dismissed that I think were pretty big this week, and then we'll get to the Oni story that matters starting tomorrow for a while. So out in Arizona, they decide, the Supreme Court decides out in Arizona that they're going to go with an 1864 law that prohibits abortion. Okay, in 1864, we were warring over slavery and everything. I mean, what you reach back to that, you say, what is that? Arizona was a wild, open territory. Tombstone and the whole thing. Well, it just shows that the Trumpian Republican Party is willing to do just about anything to get the states to go for anti-abortion, and despite their protests, there's still a number of Republicans who want a federal ban on abortion. Trump was interesting. His stand on it changes with the moment, changes with the day, changes with where he's speaking. He's been opposed to abortion bans. He's been for abortion bans. He claimed that his appointing of the 3 judges led to the dissolution of Roe v. Wade, which most people thought was settled law. And we find out that really with this new court, there is nothing settled. And now he's saying, well, let the states decide. So I would urge everyone listening, everyone viewing, everyone who has friends in some of these states, we know them as red states or the swing states. Talk to people and say, if Donald Trump gets elected, and if the Republicans sweep the Senate and the House, and there's a good chance as we speak tonight, as distasteful and alarming as that is, there's a very good chance that is the reality we will wake up to.
Well, what do you think they're? I mean, in the end, because so many of them support Trump, maybe it's through fear or whatever, but what do you think really is the goal behind all this? Because they're willing to do so much aside from just putting him in office. What do they really want?
I think there's a number of things running, Brian, and so you try to eliminate this, say, well, it's not, but I think first of all, Donald Trump, the personality, appeals to a lot of his followers. He is a businessman, although he should be.
Emily's here today.
Hey, Emily. Should anyone who knows anything about business, there was a list recently, and I counted them up. He has had 31 businesses fail in his lifetime. 31. Now, you could say
more.
no. Well, and the one that everybody says, how do you drive 3 casinos into the ground? I mean, how do you do that? Donald Trump learned how to do it, but I do think there's part of that, and also the attraction is that even though he was president for 4 years, he's viewed as a political outsider at a time when people really don't trust, politicians and politics. It's back and forth, between which is the worst institution. Is it the Senate, the House, journalists, back and forth. So Trump is able to cast himself as a political outsider, even though he was president. Secondly, I think another reason is, you talk about this frequently, Brian, and you're right on the mark. Many Republicans have a hatred for Democrats and what they stand for, and they really believe the hype of Democrats are communists and socialists, and you could spend all day pointing out that you can't be a communist and a socialist and a fascist. They're 3 separate entities, but they just lump them all together, and we're bad. Really, the issues, it's interesting what you said about economics. That used to be a pretty big issue, right? I mean, in terms of...
Right. I mean, that's where there used to be the dividing line between voting Democratic and Republican.
And in the Cold War, communism, soft on communism, Democrats, hard on communists, Republicans. But now it's more cultural issues, really, is what's driving this. So...
and I think that's the bigger problem, though, Dave, because when you're dealing with culture, there's something deeper. I don't what changes more quickly? Is it the economics of a country? Is it the politics of the country, or is it the culture? And I don't know anymore. I know the culture is extremely important. I mean, I've told you, taking a pop culture course is something that is to a great benefit of anybody. But I don't know anymore. Things change so quickly these days.
Well, and I think that in itself, is another reason why Trump is popular with a number of people. Notice what he says: "Make America great again." Now, that's got a couple of things in there. We're going to rise up and have this great country, but also it's a return to the past, right? Because that's basically how people are reading it. And that past, we've got Emily with us tonight, and we've had
a lot of people here tonight.
Yeah, well, that's good. But what happens is,
you get a message there too.
I'm going to discuss that tonight too, Emily.
I'm not a fan of Stormy Daniels. Again, she's a Republican, and
Brian,
I didn't like what she said on The View.
Brian,
sorry,
I'm not a fan of Brian. I'm not a fan of you either, but that doesn't stop me from talking to you. All right, so you say this, Trump. I mean, it's different with different people, but I think if you've got the religious issue. I'm amazed how many people believe that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats actually drink the blood of children. I mean, they really believe this. So if you believe that something's evil, you want to destroy it. And Trump, I think Trump should just be put in jail for the way he dances. Have you ever seen him dance at those rallies? Kind of this thing.
Yeah,
he's just a bad dude. Okay, and people are willing to and they'll even say, I'm sure you've heard this. I've heard this from a few Republicans who are what I would consider to be once upon a time decent Republicans. Well, I don't agree with everything he says, and I certainly don't appreciate the way he says it. But no, there's no but. Okay, and they do with that. So again. In Arizona, we see that going back to 1860 for an abortion. So again, abortion will be a huge issue.
We'd like to address this one, Dave, too, because this is where with Trump, I don't know that
I want to come
applies.
back. Yeah, save that one up, Global. That's a great kind of point to discuss. All right, so what else do we have going on? Well, Gaza, Israel, Palestinians,
Iran,
Hamas, Hezbollah are going to play a very large role in this presidential election. A number of people are convinced that Joe Biden is a warmonger. No proof there, right? But it doesn't matter. And Donald Trump is a peacemaker. I just said, well.
And by the way, that was I had to throw somebody off the list today because of that. Basically, calling somebody trying to kill people.
And look. War is a horrible thing. And atrocities are committed on all sides in war. Some, like the extermination, genocide of European Jews, with the Nazis and Hitler, are more horrid than others. But Emily, you're right. I mean, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, he's certainly missing a soul if you need soul to dance. But Emily, for anybody who doesn't know, has always been very intelligent, and we actually worked together on newspapers for a while. And Emily and I kind of knew the same people growing up, and I'm sure Emily's had this experience of friends that we knew forever. We didn't really know them. I guess if they're with Donald Trump. For example, a teacher that taught with us, Jim Crilly. You know him well. I know him well. Young Jim. His father's also named Jim. His father's 82. He has been mayor of Upper Deerfield Township for 19 years.
Where I live.
Where I lived. And he is really a super good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Super good guy, but he supports Trump. I mean, how do you get a super? How do you it's got to be he feels that he I don't think he supports Trump as much as he has problems with Joe Biden.
Or as you say, maybe you didn't know the people. In the end.
All that is part
and it's nothing against him, but
well, it is in a way. It is. I mean, again, I don't have any.
I don't know how
sympathy.
you get there. Not you,
I have
but him.
Yeah, I said the first time I could see why people voted for Donald Trump. I could see that. I disagreed with it. But I wasn't. But after his performance, and now that it's the Vengeance tour, right, Emily? On my Facebook page, I counted them up. 64 people are gone for the simple reason that they were Trump supporters. Now, most of them dropped me. I held on to this. Yeah,
because you were the first one they would. I'm not to be mean, Dave, but you.
Oh no.
You're out there with your commentary, and they
always have been. And it's interesting. Those of you who listening to
I'm going to say this, and this is not an attack on you, Dave, but this would be usually correct to say people around here either really love Dave or really hate Dave.
My own son asked a couple years ago when we were headed back to New Jersey, called and we're driving, and I was driving, and Judy took the call, and she said, Michael, we're just headed back to Jersey. Had Michael raised in Jersey? He says, does Dad have anybody who's friends with him back in the hometown? Because our area now, unbelievably so, it was Democrat when I left 13 years ago. It's now Republican, the entire county. 7-0 Republican board on the freeholder board. A number, I was shocked.
So you're telling me I live in Alabama, basically.
Worse. Alabama has some southern charm. South Jersey doesn't even have that charm. But as part of this Gaza thing, the thing that really disturbed me is because I actually happen to know him. He had a restaurant right next to us, Jose Andres, who is all that plus. I mean, he truly is. He's been talked about as should win the Nobel Peace Prize, and I believe he should. But you saw that 7 people working for his World Kitchen were killed in an Israeli attack. Now, that gets a lot of play, but it's just a very bad situation over there. And last night, Iran threw everything about what I think they've recorded. They said it was over 200 drones.
Over 300. Over 300.
Is it 300 now? It's 200
over
last
300.
I saw.
Right.
And not much damage because Israel was prepared. We helped out to get rid of some of them. But people say, "Oh my God, Iran's in, and this is going to come in."
But Dave, I'm going to ask you. I know that's a
Sure.
separate situation, but I mean, seriously, if somebody had done that and I don't want to invite any discussion with Israel. I just, right now, keep out of that.
Go ahead.
But if that happened to the United States, what do you expect?
Well, if what happened?
Or if Iran lobbed 300 missiles at the United States, what do you think would happen?
We would,
and I know that the situation with Israel, because
there would be a number of military people, a number of political people, and a number of citizens in the street just blow the Middle East to hell. That would now, hopefully, cooler heads would prevail because in nuclear war we don't even know all the outcomes yet. Nuclear winter. So I think from what I've read,
there's really no winner with that. You would just
you would. Now, your surrogate country that you study, Russia. I certainly would defer to your expertise, but I've read where they're really concentrating on tactical nuclear weapons for use against military to just kind of shock you that way. But it's there. So, and then you've got this. So, the world didn't end last night. It didn't end when the eclipse came. There were people, and mostly Trumpers.
Well, the environment's getting close. You mentioned something.
Well,
today.
I learned. I got to do.
Sandy will agree with that.
Yes, Andy. I don't know if you saw this, and if you do, you know more than I about it. But I just read a hurried headline, and then I put it aside. I have to get back to it. That I don't. The United Nations, one of their environmental committees, said we have 2 years, and that's it. If we don't, pick up the pace with environment. But of course, people probably, Brian, worry more about nuclear war than they do about environment. I think part of that is attributed to we've had more movies and more TV shows, about the nuclear war than we have about the environment. And even then, sometimes it's not a direct link. Like, I forget what the thing was. It was an ice age, which would, of course, come out of an environmental crisis, but they never said that. The other big news, and of course, it isn't directly related to the election, but I think it bears mentioning, is the death of O.J. Simpson. And I think O.J. captured some things about both the bright side of the American dream, Orenthal coming up and, becoming this, not only a football superstar, but also a commercial superstar. Was pretty funny in the movies he was in, like Police Story. But then, of course, had the dark side with the chase and the Bronco.
And Kato Kaelin, all of a sudden, after OJ dies, he says, "Well, I think he was guilty," which shows you that he was milquetoast.
The thing that I wanted to say was, I think more than maybe any other single event. Two things about OJ. He only had two personal effects on me. I was playing the night of the chase. I was playing down at the Shore in a bar band, and it's the only time from 1966 when I started my playing out to 2007 when I stopped it. It was the only time a club owner came and said, "Please do not play. We will pay you. You can drink for free. You can eat for free, but we want to watch that." And so OJ was responsible for me having a night off, but getting paid. But the other one that is more serious was I had the TV on in my classroom when the verdict came back. And the classroom was racially mixed. And two of my black students sprung out of their chairs screaming with joy. Not that they won, they saw it as a victory for black Americans. I watched the other black students' faces, and I watched the white students' faces, and I felt my face. I was really shocked at the verdict. I really was. I mean, I believed with what I had heard, he was guilty. However, court found him not guilty. However, a civil court found him guilty. So, I think in the end, he was guilty. You say, well, no, he was guilty but found innocent because, again, a very American theme. They called it the dream team of attorneys. It may be the best group of attorneys ever assembled, with Johnny Cochran in the lead. Little quick aside, seems like I know all these famous people, but I don't. Actually, my grandnephew, had Johnny Cochran as his attorney for a court case where his father was killed. We'll come back to that. You want to come back?
I'll come back
to that in a moment. Yeah. And then, let's stop there. Once you answer that question, and then we'll jump. The second portion of the show, we will devote to what is beyond a doubt the most historic court case involving presidents, not just in our lifetime, but from George Washington to Joe Biden. So why don't you take that question first that they had up there? I didn't see. Put it up again.
NTI, you can look at this from different viewpoints. I'm going to give you my major reasoning behind this, because there are a few things that people will say. Now, of course, Russia has plenty of geography. It doesn't really need any more land, although the soil in Ukraine is one of the best in the world. But that's not the point. Ukraine, after 2014, they were fighting for democracy and freedom. And people in Russia can see what's going on in neighboring countries. And I think the great fear, the greatest fear for Putin is this. Their Slavic brothers to the south, the Ukrainians, which was an area called Rus. Okay, so the original Vikings came down there. They were big partiers, and it was kind of divided up between the Poles and what was the Ukrainians and the Russians. But what I see as the greatest problem for Russia, and the way Putin was probably looking at it, again, this is just my opinion, is that he knows that if democracy opened up there, that their economy would quickly pick up and do well, and they would be living well, because he saw what happened with Latvia, he saw what happened with Lithuania, okay, and Estonia, what's happened there. He saw what happened with Poland, and their economy is just catapulted. And Ukraine was, I mean, the population is probably even larger than Poland, I would say. I may be wrong. But it's a fairly large country compared to, say, Poland, or definitely larger than Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania. But if they were to do well, it's so visible because Russians always go down there for their vacations, and they spend a month on vacation. And they would see that the economy would be doing well, and it just slaps in the face the Russian government, how they have it's so corrupt, and it can't generate its own economy. It was dependent, the last 15 years, it's been dependent on machinery from outside of Russia. And now that you have the sanctions, it's much more difficult. So they say, well, we're going to do this on our own. And they can't. I mean, they're going to attempt it, but now with AI and the way things are moving so quickly, they'll never catch up, even with all of those resources. So it was a political danger for Putin to see Ukraine do well. Now, of course, he'd like to have Ukraine. He'd like to have Crimea. In fact, many Russians still want Crimea. And you could argue one way or another who should have that, if it can be shared, or what. And maybe even the Ukrainians would share Crimea with them. But Ukraine is Ukraine, and to them it's their territory. But to the Russians, he's talking about a mentality from Alexander II. So again, there are other people who think it's their demographics are changing, and they need to quickly infuse more people. Because the Russian population is dwindling. They have a brain flight. You have all many intelligent people leaving and going to the West, and it's a real problem for Russia. And Ukraine was right there. And you know how quickly Poland developed into a very powerful economic country. That would happen in Ukraine, and I think that would have been the last straw, and that would have been it for him, and it would have been the end of Russia as we know it.
I wonder, and again, interested, just a brief comment from you on this. I wonder if there also was an idea, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but also the idea that if Russia could take Ukraine, they couldn't become a member of NATO, which sets kind of a protective screen.
Well, that would make sense, Dave. It's
for that.
It is true that they're worried about the fact that there's NATO, but any reasonable person knows that NATO, even in Russia, they know that NATO is not going to attack. There's no, Canada's part of NATO.
But I'm saying they would. I mean, they have the treaty to defend the NATO countries. Now, whether they'd work that out. And here's this interesting thing. Who will try to end NATO on the third day in office?
Oh, that's
Donald Trump.
Absolutely
if Donald
true.
Trump,
Absolutely.
and he will. We don't even know. So. Hope that helps. And a guy and
essentially on the third day he may end the United States as we know it.
Well, that's true. But let's look at what happens tomorrow. Okay. Can't underplay it. It's the first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president in history. It's never happened before, so it is groundbreaking. Let's look at Mr. Trump. He's under gag orders, which he calls them, which they are. That's basically gag, keeps you from talking. Not to criticize the judge, the defendants, the lawyers for the other side, and so far he's broken every one of them. Now, what I wonder is, and you said this, you're kind of the spokesperson for this. When the hell is somebody going to stand up within legal parameters and do something about Donald Trump. He defies Steve Bannon, his people. And I think what's happening is really insidious in this way. Young people, and older people, they're set in their ways. But young people look at this and say, wait a minute, how come they can get away with it and I can't? Kind of thing. I mean, so Trump is horrible as a representative of, in America, we're all held to account. He's not so far. He's attacked all the judges in all of his cases. In particular, he's attacked the judge's daughter.
He hasn't attacked Aileen Cannon, that's for sure.
Well, of course not. Why?
I'm just. But my point is, that's the problem with the legal system. He's entrenched. He's like an octopus.
But let's not kid ourselves. The legal system has always been political, always, because of the way judges are appointed. And so when the Democrats are in power, they'll appoint Democrat-leaning judges. When the Republicans are there. But now suddenly, you talk about a reality. Tomorrow, the trial's coming. Tomorrow, it comes. Now, there's some thought that Trump will pull illness tomorrow. I don't think so. I think he wants to go and he feels that he can actually campaign better, perhaps, in a courtroom, because last night, in Pennsylvania was his last rally before this. And here's what he did, that again, is devious. And I don't know if he's getting help, Brian, or if I just can't consider he'd be this bright, but he would be this narcissistic. So you don't know whether it's an intelligence behind it or just his narcissism. When he said at the rally last night, he said, and guess what, my friends? They gagged me. I won't be able to say anything in the trial. Bullshit, Donald Trump. The gag order doesn't apply in the trial. You can testify, you can do whatever you want in the trial. It's these comments outside. No doubt he hates his former attorney and mob conciliary, Michael Cohen. But the real focus, of course, is going to be on my favorite, Stormy Daniels. I will say this. I've been in her presence 2 times. One time I professed my undying love for her, because that's usually what happens when a woman's sitting naked.
Is that love or lust, human?
Actually, I was just weirded out. I'm thinking, and yes, somewhere, as I said before, not doing a Trumpian thing here. Pictures do exist, but I could never see them, nor could anyone else, because the law in D.C. is that you cannot release any pictures taken inside a strip club or a gentleman's club, which makes sense in that. But I really did want to see the pictures. And then the second time was a little bit higher purpose. She spoke at Politics and Bros when her book came out. She is, I don't want to say highly intelligent. She's certainly not stupid. She's certainly not a bimbo.
Oh, we can say that. She's not stupid. Okay.
And she's not a bimbo.
But she is a Republican. Still.
Well, Brian, I don't care what she is unless she votes for Donald Trump.
She's not going to vote for. She already said she doesn't like Biden.
Well, okay, she's going to help Biden. If she testifies, she's going to help Biden. So who cares? Who cares, right? I would rather,
she's got to be smart enough to say, I have to vote for Biden, but she doesn't.
But no, she doesn't have to, because her job is simple. Your job is to vote for Joe Biden. My job is to vote for Joe Biden.
No, that's right. Her job is to portray... wasn't what she was, I'm not so sure you would be.
What?
Agreeing.
No, I mean, this is, you're not taking on, we're not changing anybody's mind. Maybe, this is it. Now, but, and there's a big but here, it's one of the largest jury pools they've ever summoned. There are 600 jurors have been summoned. Now, whether they'll all show up tomorrow, I don't think there's a courthouse in New York City big enough to hold 600 potential jurors. And what they need to find, they may actually go this time. I think they might even go up to 20. The jury will be 12 people.
All right. Yeah, you'll have to have plenty of alternates just in case.
Alternates because this will be interesting. In other words, I'm sure one side or the other or both will ask for sequestered jury, which simply means the jurors, come to court and then go back and stay in a motel or hotel, sequestered. I'm sure there'll be moves for that. Whether the judge will agree.
Although I don't know that
whether,
Trump would want that because this way they can say something like, they
well,
can challenge it
look,
and appeal.
I know,
Because I think he thinks he's going to win on the
well,
appeal.
I didn't say just Trump. The other side,
Right.
either side could want it, but of course the judge would have to agree to it. It's going to be very hard. The idea is you want jurors who have not formed an opinion on the case. Where are you going to find that? But even if you could, aren't even aware of the case. That isn't going to happen. As legal experts have pointed out, this is the President of the United States. Everybody, I don't think there's an American who doesn't know that Donald Trump was once a president. I mean, you'd have to be mental capacity diminished to do that. So it could be a long time selecting the juror. Now, what I don't know, I don't know New York law enough to know each side gets challenges, right? And they can challenge a juror.
Right.
They also get dismissal without cause, meaning
Right.
something went on. Now, they'll both have, I'm sure, at a case this big, they'll have people with a lot of background in psychology looking at them. They actually usually sit somewhere there, and usually at the defense and the prosecution tables, saying, "No, not this juror. Go for this one." And it really is, if you've read any.
That's important because again, that makes a good point about Stormy. She's got to, she's saying, "I'm sure as shit going to vote for Biden."
I'm not trying to. Look, I don't.
I know you like her, but
no, it's
she's
not.
a shit.
Here's what it is. Okay, she would be a shit if she said, "Oh, Trump didn't do it."
Well, she's well. Okay.
Brian,
What's the difference between a big shit and a half shit?
You're
Okay, it's still
you're
shit.
so wrong. I'm embarrassed. Just keep drinking that and don't open your mouth.
Okay.
She's a Republican, so she's not good. She's a Republican,
And she said she won't vote for Biden.
Jesus Christ, Brian! She's
Okay.
going to attack Trump. If she could pull 5,
I guess
votes,
it's
10
better than Steve Bannon.
No, not I
voting
guess
for-
it's better.
Okay.
You
But it's not very good.
and
It-
anyway.
it doesn't really.
Okay,
impress me.
I will be honest. I'd much rather she sit on my lap naked than you. So there is that.
I would
that.
agree that
All
you think.
No. But what's going to happen is she has changed her story a couple times, so it will be interesting to see. And if it gets real, will it get really graphic? Will she describe? And will that go in the records forever about Trump's mushroom?
Would they necessarily have to be graphic anyway for what they're trying to get out of it? The fact that they're
No,
just looking at the
no.
things.
Really, all they have to do, they have to prove two things: that Stormy Daniels had a sexual, had a sexual intimacy with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump ordered money to hush her up.
Mm-hmm.
We know. He denies it, but I'm pretty certain that they had at least one sexual encounter. And she says she got the money, and Cohen said he delivered it to her. And there's no love lost now from Cohen and Trump either.
And
So
why would
Cohen
somebody
is-
just pay her $180,000? That's just ridiculous.
Well, I suppose no, you're right. But you have to prove that, and you have to, and what they really want to try to get at is if they can prove where the money came from, because we know that Trump has a habit, a tendency. Dave must be considering a new career. No, as I say, I thought we had something special, but she dissed me the second time. So, and she didn't invite me up to hear this. Although I have said on the show before, it was kind of funny. One of my former students has a side job of writing music for the porn industry, and he knows Stormy pretty well. In fact, when they got together when they were in Washington, I begged him to let me go with him, but he didn't. That's another story. All right, so we got with this now. So what would make the ideal Trump juror? Because you got to remember the prosecution is not going to want that. Here is what's been determined. Now, see, isn't it funny? And again, I'm trying not to let that.
But who cares? I mean,
What I meant was The Rock. I'm disgusted with
yeah, he's
but Stormy at least is providing a function of attacking. The Rock just didn't do anything.
well, he's with McMahon, and McMahon's
Well, I
wife
know that.
was
Well, not really. He's beyond that now. He's way beyond that.
Right.
He's at one point was was the Hollywood star making the most money for films. But anyway, back to this. So, what would be the ideal Trump juror? And I was reading about that, and they really had three characteristics. Okay, they want a blue collar man. They don't want a white collar. Why? Because blue collar is the working class, and
All the
let's face it,
tendencies to vote for Trump, you want that person.
blue collar. Because basically
White too, probably.
Well, actually, no. They said if you could find any, so that these three characteristics. Now, white would be a benefit, but they would take anybody. They want blue collar men. They want men who have a distrust of federal power, which I find so interesting because Trump, the president has a lot of federal power, but again. And I'm going to come back to that, Sandy, too, before we leave. I want to address that. We look at this, and so you got a distrust of federal power. And then the biggie, they only want people who watch right-wing news shows, Fox, OAN, Newsmax. That's what they want. Now, what's interesting, in New York City, it skewers inordinately Democrat, okay, at this point. So define sex, oh, Lord, we go forever on that. It's not the things that Brian does. That's not sex at all. That's something else. I don't even know what that is. So anyway, well, but you only get so many challenges. So what happens, after you run out? Well, then you have to put people on there. So, but that's the first thing. If I were watching, I won't watch it. I'll watch the highlights later. But if I'm sure it'll be televised, and everything. But for people saying, watch that game that's played between trying to get your jurors and trying to keep their jurors off. So we'll see what that is. No idea how long it will take. I think it will take an inordinate time to actually select a jury. So it wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me if they get it done in a week. I don't see that. But however, we will get a finding before the election. There will be, in some way. Now, Brian, you said it. We said it. We all know it will be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. There's no question in my mind.
And so somewhere along the lines, there'll be some type. I will predict there'll be some type of mistake, and they'll capitalize on that.
Well, again, and
because somebody screws up, like Avenatti.
You started out being very hard on Merrick Garland, and I held off a little bit, and now I might be harder than you on him.
Yeah, probably, but I don't like it.
And I think Merrick is a classic example of we're dealing with the president here. We don't want to make any mistakes. No, I'd rather see him make mistakes and go after him, than not. So, and just I don't advise anybody spend time on Republican sites, but Truth Social, I go on there just to see what's going on. And Trump has convinced his people that they're out to get me. Well, first of all, you got to believe that there's a creator in that comment. And that's what I find, there's no exceptions usually for religious people. It's their God, it's their way. And that goes across, that's in Islam, it's in Judaism, it's in any monotheism. It's my God should be your God.
Which is funny because they're the ones who come out against, sex. In general, they don't want any type of abortion. But
right.
The minute you have some type of free love, whatever it is, creative love, so to speak, they don't like it.
Well,
they don't want to see anybody.
And of course, with the abortion issue or the issue, I used to tell all my students, and people say today, I actually met with my department head boss when I was back in Jersey, and she's now revised. She said she thought I could last a week as a teacher. She said now it's a matter of minutes before they would throw me out. But I always used to tell my students what I thought was valuable information is, anytime you have sex, if it is, male, female, not if it's female, female, or not if it's male, male. Male, female, there is a possibility that a life will be created. I don't care what birth control you're on. I don't care what you use. And I always would tell them, I said, if you're going to have sex, it should be with someone that you could envision being the mother of your child or the father of your child. And of course, I understand when hormones are raging, and I know some 80-year-olds that their hormones are still raging.
No, that's because it doesn't stop.
Well, yeah. Well, in fact, it's actually picking up. The highest concentration of STDs in the country now is in the Villages, which is the senior citizens complex. Now, Florida's fourth largest city.
I would believe it.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But what's going to happen is it will be interesting. You know, will she talk? Will Stormy? And will it come up? Will the court ask her to draw his Yeti pubes? Will they ask her to draw? You know, what do you remember? One of her comments was, I didn't even know it was in, but it's how she said, I didn't even know it was in or out or whatever. But it was just, you know, I'm a paid sex worker, and the check cleared. That's one, you know, thing she said. So we really don't know what we have until it begins, but it does begin tomorrow. And I think somebody can correct me, please. I may be wrong in this, but I think in just this particular trial alone, Trump tried 7 delays, and none of them were accepted. And now we're going. Some people have said, I don't think he will. I don't know. We don't know with Trump. Some said he will fake an illness, but I'll tell you why I don't think so. I think he just wanted to jam up. I believe that he believes that he can campaign as well from the courthouse as he can from out there. And he's probably right.
It depends on if he's testifying, correct?
Well,
or is he going to wait till he gets out of the courtroom and then does his thing?
He'll be tested. He'll say things. Trump can't keep his mouth shut. He can't. It's impossible. So
now, first of all, do you think that he will actually testify?
Okay. Smart Money says that if your client is guilty or appears to be guilty or is not pleasant in that way, a defendant should not testify.
Right.
But he also has run out of good attorneys. I mean, the people he had, I think they got their law degree from Kmart, some of them. So who knows? I think he will push to testify. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. So if he testifies, I think we'll see that he swayed his attorneys.
I don't see how an attorney would let him testify.
Well, okay. You don't think Trump will fire him?
Right. I mean, he'll do what he wants.
That's it, Brian. I mean, you're right. A smart person, and he's not that way. And what's really sad, I think, is that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, when he's now, what is he down to? I think 83 charges now down from 91, whatever was dropped. But anyway, there's 2 ways of looking at that. One way is, with all that, there has to be some guilt there somewhere. That I think is a logical view.
Dave, can you answer that for Anthony?
What was it? Will the trial be private, or will you sit to see the trial? I want to watch the trial. Okay, the way that works, Anthony, is the judge decides that. And he decides it based on motions from the attorneys. For example, the OJ trial, right? The judge got in a lot of trouble for doing that because it became a circus. But there's going to be tremendous pressure, and you can come outside. All the news networks will join in a motion to televise the trial. I mean, it'll be interesting to compare, because America's a different place, television is a different place. But it would be interesting to see how this will compare to the Watergate trial, which was different. The Watergate trial was in the Senate. It wasn't. So I haven't seen. We'll know more tomorrow, right? In fact, it could be all week taken up with motions, Yeah,
Global says no cameras.
Yeah, okay. Well, then what we'll get, if we get no cameras, then we'll get the sketch artists.
I would think it'd be no cameras anyway, because it would not help Trump being frustrated.
Well,
then his supporters may see him in another light.
Well,
maybe not.
Brian, I understand what you're saying, but you're laying on a logic that Trump doesn't have. Trump just wants to. He doesn't care. There is no such thing as bad publicity to him. So I think he would fight to want to have cameras. And if they don't, he'll violate that gag order as soon as the first day is over if something doesn't go his way. What I will be really most fascinated in seeing is, will he violate the gag order, and then will the judge put him in jail? And if he does, it'll only strengthen his supporters. But hopefully, it might make some other people think there. So certainly, on our show next week, we'll be able to discuss a little bit. It'll be interesting to see just how far we've gone. I also think it'll be interesting to see what Biden does with this. Okay, does he come out smoking and comment on the trial? Not on the, or does he just be quiet, or does he get surrogates to do it? A lot of people are suggesting, even though it's not, that Joe Biden can't do that. That's not something he does. Mm-hmm. Well, Joe, I'm sorry, but I don't think your way of doing things, I hate to say this, but your way is gone the way of the dodo. It compromising that kind of thing. Now, that, as Gary pointed out earlier, let's see. Gary said, he's already, in a way, altered, changed, and perhaps destroyed America. Be hard to argue with Gary on that, right? Again, my point is, how do we come back next week? Or if we start, I don't know when, for everybody, we're going to do a midweek show. It won't be live, but that's coming up. Right. I don't know, a couple of weeks probably.
It'll be a recorded show, folks, and we'll just put it
maybe we have to wait until, seriously, maybe we have to wait until June, when Brian, when you're scheduled. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be something that's done, and it'll be a little bit different than this. But basically, there's just too much.
We'll have interviews, things like that.
We're gonna do. I got some people set up for that. Okay, let's speculate. We do that normally. My question is always, who do you think? If the election were tomorrow, who would win? Let's change that. When this trial is over, will Trump be found innocent or guilty? What do you think?
I would
the trial itself.
Sandy. I think because he's Teflon Don, he's going to get off on a criminal. Well, this is
criminal.
Criminal.
So what? Let's look at that.
I think they're going to find one juror to screw it up.
Well, that's all you need.
And that's
it.
And that's my prediction. Again, they're going to find one.
And I should know this, but I don't. Every state has a different ruling on if jurors can talk to the press or not, right? New Jersey, you cannot. It's a contempt of court. Even after a trial, you can't. Because, they say that the trial should be sacrosanct and done that way. But if New York has you can talk, there'll be a juror who wants a book out of it. Maybe that 12 Angry Men, remember that movie? Mm-hmm. One juror held out.
And it was such a great performance by Lee J. Cobb. He was such an underrated actor.
Well, the whole ensemble.
The ensemble was great.
But no, I would agree.
They always about Brando, how his type of method acting, but Lee J. Cobb was right there. Where there's I don't want to get into Hollywood on the waterfront.
No, but well, again, this certainly has aspects of a circus, right? We've got the ringmaster con man, P.T. Barnum himself, on the defendant's seat. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say he's going to be found guilty on the grounds. I don't know what will happen in appeal. I'll answer that after that. But I think there is enough there to convince jurors that.
I would agree. There'll be enough there. There will be enough there.
And your question is well taken. Is it Teflon Don and it won't go? Will there be one juror? And the other thing that happens a lot of times too, Brian, is an understandable. Jurors, when they're being vaudeered, which is questioned,
right?
They often lie. Have you ever supported Donald Trump? No, because they want to get on the jury, right? Now the other side of it is people lie to get off of a jury.
I think it would be kind of hard for them to avoid that because I think there's enough information out there on Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Well, not even YouTube, but just Facebook. They could find out just through friends.
To say that the questioning, I would assume, and we'll know more when it's not going to be so much, are you aware of this case, right? It will be, have you formed an opinion of the innocence or guilt of the defendant? That's what and that you can kind of honestly say, pretty much so, say no. They'll ask you, can you impartially listen to this and then form that decision? Could be, certainly says it. Now, another question I have tonight. Our numbers were really up tonight, although you're boring people, so they're leaving. But I'm wondering again. We have to look into this. Is Sunday night a better night than Saturday, or is this just
I don't know. I mean, it's
I,
times. YouTube Studio will let you see, like, at certain times what
right.
type of viewership you're getting in videos, and evenings generally tend to be stronger. But again, this is even just like last night.
I'm just wondering. I think my personal opinion would be just like would be that more people would be able to watch on Sunday night than they would on Saturday night. Just given the fact that
Yeah,
Saturday,
they go out Saturday nights.
but then a
we
lot
have
of
a
our
different
people.
viewer. We're an older
Well, that's
viewer.
and many of our viewers are retired. One other thing I want to say is, people ask, well, what's it like Washington D.C. at this time? Well, here's what it's like. I had kind of a thing today. So, Judy and I are going to see a performance on Tuesday at the Kennedy Center. It's a performance of a British dance company has taken 27 of Sting's songs that he's written, both for the Police and himself, and it's not a ballet; it's a modern dance to this. So we go to get our tickets, and for those who haven't been to the Kennedy Center, the ushers and the helpers all wear red jackets to identify that they're there. And this guy was at the ticket booth, my age, maybe even a little bit older, and I had on. I have a collection of anti-Trump or pro-Biden shirts, and I had on my Willie Nelson is for Biden shirt. And so he said, he said, I like your shirt. Oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't say that. Next thing, we're off and running. And he is very liberal. And he had the same questions we all do. How, why, who, so even here, supposedly in the city that knows everything, knows it all, people are still confused about how you can support Donald Trump. One area that I want to get to, and I want to start on the other show I want to bring up, the Heritage Foundation has prepared a 628-page document on what Trump should do as president. It is some scary shit.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It is some
We'll
really
hold that
scary
for
shit.
one of those shows. So.
For that little.
Dave, it's getting late here, so.
I know. See, what I want to do, I want to filibuster and keep him because, ladies and gentlemen, what he's saying. Now, think about this. What Brian is saying is, what he has to do is more important than you. And I think you should actually boo him.
What
for
I have
that.
to do for other kids is more important.
We don't know that. So what I'd all like you to do, we won't hear it, but just give Brian a very loud, resounding boo, because he's insulting you. Yeah, Brian, we'll cut off. We'll talk.
Yeah,
and we will see.
And Dave, you owe me a video, so make sure we get that. Okay.
Okay, I will do that.
You not too good. You way too much.
No, well, you keep sending me pictures. I won't go into that.
All right,
everybody.
Get your stuff together. All right, folks. And everybody have a pleasant week.
And the last thing I want to say is, please invite people, because you've all everybody who's watched this show I've seen has invited people, but then their people weren't answering the question, which we didn't put them in. But now we're using an invitation as you're doing the screening for us. Mm-hmm. So if you know Like Souls, Emily, there's 2 that exist in Bridgeton, and one of them's Brian, and you. That's 3. So there's if we can find some people, that would be great. Right. But just again, we want to add not for us, but this is going to be what I say. This is going to be a scary 205 days leading up to. So we'll see what happens. All right, Brian. Talk to you later.
And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. We'll look probably to Saturday, but we never know. We might get one of those weekday videos.
Oh, so. Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is I'm a person who believes if you ask people to do something, you should do it yourself. So, boo, 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 Brian. Okay, that's it.
Oh, thank you. That I didn't see the video, so I'll have to look at it. I'm going to
thanks,
thank you ahead of time.
We really appreciate
that.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. So, yeah, you guys are.
I'm going to cut it out first. I'm gone.
Okay, I'll see you, folks. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. T-Bone Veg, Emily, Sandy, Bella, Global, Anthony, Joey, Gary. Yeah, we had a lot of different people tonight. That was really, really nice. So we'll see you next time. And like I said, Stormy's not that great. Probably in more ways than one. All right, so we'll see you.